right, let's see where we were with Ben and Jill. Chapter 11 is called Artifacts. The compass rose, remember the thing in the floor, was just as Jill had described it. An arrow through a ring of brass, which is like shiny goldish looking, set into a wide oak floorboard. It was worn bright and shiny by the constant foot traffic at the girls' room door. "How do you find northeast?" she whispered. Think of this circle like it's a clock. North is where 12 o'clock would be. East is where the 3 would be, which is like 15 minutes past 12. Northeast is halfway between north and east, which would be like 7.5 minutes past 12. And northeast is half of that, which would be like about 4 minutes after the 12. Get it? Jill nodded. "So we use this to aim with, and then we look for something, right?" "I think so," said Ben. "But we'll need..." Footsteps coming up the south staircase. Tap, 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 tap. But they stayed on the second floor and gradually faded away. "We'll need what?" whispered Jill. "A long string to make a straight line, or a laser pointer." Jill's eyes crinkled. "Promise not to laugh." "What?" She was already digging in the outer pocket of her book bag. "I've got dental floss. Just be glad your mom never worked for a dentist." Ben grinned. "And it's the minty kind, my favorite." A minute later, Ben held one end of the floss at the right spot on the compass rose, and Jill had unreeled the spool down the hallway. Ben motioned her to move right, and then to the left. And finally she was up against the wall about 30 feet away, northeast. The smell of mint filled the air. "Okay," he whispered. "Stay right there." He walked slowly along the path marked by the line of floss, not sure what he was looking for. A loose floorboard? There weren't any. A special mark? Or a group of nails that made a pattern? Nothing jumped out at him. When he got to where Jill stood, he looked at the floor, examined the wall above the end of the line, and scanned the whole area for several feet on either side. Still nothing. "Here," he whispered. "Just put the floss down. Help me look." Walking to the other side of the hall, they stood almost in front of the tall portrait of Captain Oakes and looked back at where the little white plastic box marked the spot. Again, nothing. Then Ben grabbed Jill's arm and she jumped. "Ow, what?" "The molding. The boards along the floor. See?" Jill shook her head. "Look at how long the molding boards are. 10 feet or 12 feet long maybe, and then there's a break and a new board starts. Look at the seams. See?" Jill slowly nodded. "Yeah. And now, look just to the right of the floss. See that short board, about 8 inches long?" "Yeah." If a carpenter was running out of longer boards, the little pieces would go near the ends or close to a corner where they wouldn't show so much. You wouldn't stick a short piece in the middle like that, unless there's a reason for it. Come on. Up close, Ben saw that the brown varnish coating the baseboard was checked and cracked and thick. The seams on both ends of the short piece were filled with it. Here's what it looked like with them measuring down the hallway. And now, one of these, see the boards along the bottom? That's what they're calling the baseboards. So they're looking for those boards and they found one that's shorter than all the rest. Ben motioned her to move right and then to the left, and finally she was up against the wall about 30 feet away, northeast. The smell of mint. Oops, I read that already. I forgot to turn the page after I showed you. The seams on both ends of the short piece were filled with it. Ben grabbed a stainless steel ruler from his backpack and pushed the sharp corner of the thin metal into the crack on the left side of the short molding board. Then he worked it upward with a sawing motion. The dried varnish crumbled to dust, leaving a thin seam. He did the same to the crack on the right side of the board. Along the top of the beveled board, pale green paint filled the crack between the wood and the wall, and Ben used the ruler to clean that out as well. "Now what?" whispered Jill. "Move a little over here so there's better light." Jill moved, and then she bent down close to the molding. "Is that anything?" She pointed at a nick on the top edge of the board. "Probably not," said Ben, not Nick. There were dings and dents all over the place. He took a closer look. "Actually, you're right. Looks like someone made a tiny V there, like with a chisel or a knife, on purpose." "So it's a pointer?" Jill asked. Ben nodded. "It is, I'm sure of it." "Here," Jill said, and took the ruler from his hand, slipping it down between the wall and the wood right at the V mark. She pushed the ruler in 3 inches and then stopped. "What?" whispered Ben. "It's hitting something. Feels like metal." The thin stainless steel flexed as Jill increased the pressure. "I'm going to ruin this thing." "Go ahead and push." Her knuckles were white, her face flushed with effort as she pushed and pried with the ruler. Then, click! The piece of baseboard moved forward, pulling away from the wall almost 1/2 inch. Using both hands, she put her fingertips along the top of the board and pulled. The front edge of the baseboard stayed put as the whole piece tipped forward. 2 small brass hinges held the bottom to the floor. Ben saw a thin strip of metal sticking out from the wall, which matched up with a slot in the wood. "Very cool." "Look," Jill whispered. On the inside surface of the board was a big iron key. It was actually in the wood, embedded in its own perfectly carved outline. "Go ahead, take it out." Jill used the ruler to pry at the key, first one end, then the other, until it came free of the board. "It's heavy." Jill turned the key over in her hand, and they both saw some writing scratched into the metal. Rusty, but legible. "Use only if you must." Ben turned back to look at the wall, then nudged Jill. There was a cut in the plaster wall that the molding had covered, a narrow slot about 2 inches high and 6 inches wide. He put 3 fingers into the opening and felt around, then pulled them out, covered with thick dust. Also, a few mouse droppings. "Gross," said Jill. "Let me have the ruler." Ben pushed the strip of metal into the bottom edge of the slot, then slid it from side to side, using it like a spatula. Then he reached in again and removed a length of pine board, about 5 inches square, dusty and dark brown with age. "A piece of wood?" whispered Jill. "Looks that way," he said, "except it's too heavy." "And look, here on the edge of the board, there's a..." Ben froze, held up his hand. A sound from the north staircase, then another. The unmistakable clank of a large metal bucket, and heavy footsteps on the stairs, coming up. "Lyman!" Jill jammed the key into her pocket, and Ben shoved the tilted baseboard back into its place. Click! They scrambled to their feet, and as she grabbed up the dental floss, he dashed to his backpack and slipped the pine board inside. In 5 seconds, they were skimming down the south stairs. When they got to the first floor, Ben pointed. "Go into the girls' room." Jill gave him an odd look. "Just do it," he said. 5 seconds. He ducked into the boys' room and washed the dust off his hands. When he came out, they hurried along the deserted central hallway of the old building and went through the causeway into the annex. Ben had the feeling Lyman was watching them, and just before they reached a corner, he took a quick look over his shoulder. No one. Mrs. Flagg stopped them inside the door of the cafeteria. "You're late for lunch." Ben nodded. "I went to the restroom." Jill said, "Me too." The teacher waved them on. Ben bought a carton of chocolate milk, and Jill got some plain 2%. Before she headed for the food line, Ben said, "So, don't lose that key, and don't unlock anything without me." She smiled. "Not a chance. And don't even think about looking at that hunk of wood unless I'm there too." "Fair enough." Jill arched an eyebrow at him. "Anything else?" "Nope, except I think this might be the most fun I've had at school since kindergarten." Jill laughed. "Me too. See you at 2:45, okay?" "Yeah, but let's meet just beyond the school grounds in case anyone's watching." Ben went and sat in his usual lunch spot with Luke, Bill, and Gabe, and right away Bill said, "Hey, you and Jill." "Huh?" "Nice." Ben shook his head. "Nah, it's not like that. We're working on a project for Hinman's class." He looked away and took a big bite of his peanut butter sandwich, and that stopped the public discussion of his personal life. But Ben certainly didn't stop thinking about it, along with 100 other things, and he smiled to himself just a little. Chapter 12, Finders Keepers. "I'm not supposed to be here, right?" Ben nodded. "My dad usually doesn't let me have friends on the boat when he's out, but it's only for a few minutes. It'll be okay." Jill sat down on the worn couch in the main cabin and looked up at the row of oblong portholes that rimmed the small room. Bright afternoon sun threw patterns onto the curved wall across from her, and the steady rocking of the boat put them in motion. "Doesn't it drive you crazy how everything's always moving around?" "You get used to it." "But it's so small in here. I mean, I guess I knew that because the whole boat's not very long." "Or wide," added Ben, "but you get used to that too. And I like small spaces anyway. My room at home isn't big either. At my mom's house, I mean." "How long have you had this boat?" "Not really sure. My dad got it before I was born, even before my folks got married. He bought it real cheap and fixed it up. Mom says Dad loves the boat more than both of us put together." He paused a second, then added, "But that's not true." After an awkward moment, Ben said, "So, ready for the big unveiling?" "Absolutely." Ben pulled up the side leaf on the table in front of Jill and clicked it into place. He zipped open his book bag, took out the square piece of pine board, then handed it to her. "See what I mean? How it feels too heavy to be just wood? 'Cause white pine is really light, especially when it's old and dry like this. And you see that thin line all around the edge?" "Yeah?" Ben got up, took 3 steps to the galley, kitchen, opened a drawer by the sink, and got out a small paring knife. Back at the table, he took the piece of wood from Jill and used the slim blade to gently pry at the crack, which got wider. It only took a minute before the board came apart into 2 halves, and inside there was a square sheet of copper, tacked into place at the corners, and there was writing scribbled into the metal. "Look at that," Jill breathed. Ben nodded, squinting at the tiny words. The copper was the color of an old penny. "We need more light." He moved the tablet onto a patch of direct sun, and they each read the words silently. Here's what it kind of looks like. On metal, the color of a penny. "If you have found this message on purpose, then an evil day besets us, for you must have been shown the coin with its words of warning. Captain Oakes has given this school to us, to the children, but he feared others would one day try to take it away. It is the day he prepared for, and that day has come. He prepared 5 safeguards to help us in our self-defense, hidden lest they be too easily found and put to wrong use. After 5 bells sound, time to sit down. After 4 times 4, tread up 1 more. After 3 hooks pass, 1 will be brass. After 2 tides spin, a man walks in. After 1 still star, horizons afar. You must seek each safeguard in order from 5 to 1, and you must use only what is needed. Leave things unneeded, undisturbed. Above all, seek the final safeguard only if you must. For once the last is found, our school will change forever. You must now swear a most fearsome oath of secrecy and promise to defend this school. For it is truly this school that defends us all from ignorance, poverty, and tyranny. Though we may be dead and buried as you read these words, our duties here live on, and honor demands that you serve alongside us. We, the children, will always be the keepers of the school. Thomas Vining, Lewis Hendley, Abigail Baines. Hereupon have we signed with our own hands on this day, April 12th, 1791. Jill finished reading first. Wow, so, like, these are students who wrote this? That's amazing. Ben nodded. Yeah, it is. Hey, he tapped excitedly on the copper plate. See this kid's last name? It's the same as the man who drew up the plans, the ones for the school. I bet it's his father. So that means these kids weren't doing stuff all on their own, which makes it a little less amazing. He picked up the lid that had covered the writing and turned it over a few times. And making a thing like this? Serious woodworking skills. Same with that hiding place. But if it was actually the captain and his carpenter planning everything, how come they brought the kids into it? Jill shrugged. Maybe Captain Oakes didn't trust anybody except carpenters, janitors, and kids. But kids don't stay kids very long. They grow up, right? Yeah, said Jill. But don't forget the weirdo factor. Maybe we shouldn't count on finding a whole lot of logic in what the captain was doing. This is the same guy who had himself buried in the middle of a school playground. Good point. Ben got out his laptop, opened a new document, and began to type, copying the words from the metal plate. Jill stood up and hooked her backpack over one shoulder. Well, I hate to say it, but I've got to head for home now, before my mom sends out the police looking for me, or the Coast Guard. But I'm glad I got to see that message, and your boat. It's a very cool place to live. She walked into the galley. Ben looked up from the keyboard. Can't you stick around a while, so we can try to figure out what some of this stuff means? Just call your mom and tell her where you are. I don't think that's a good idea. She's pretty old-fashioned, doesn't want me at somebody's house if the parents aren't home. And I know she'd start asking questions about everything. So I'd better just go. Well, wait a minute and I'll walk with you. That's okay, you don't have to, she said. I know, but I've got to go get some milk at the Scuttle Mart. Actually, Ben thought he might ask Jill to come watch his race Saturday afternoon, except he didn't know if she'd want to. She hadn't seemed that interested when they talked about sailing on Thursday. But maybe he'd at least mention it again. 5 minutes later, they were walking up the slanted gangway toward the security booth. As they passed it, Ben smiled and waved at the guard behind the sliding door. And when he did, the man opened the glass and motioned him over. Hi, Kevin. Hey there, Ben. Didn't see you go by earlier. This is for your dad. It's from the fella who stopped by this morning. Said they could talk again tomorrow. He handed Ben a business card. Jackson Swerdling, yacht broker. There was a post office box in Charleston and a couple of phone numbers. So this guy was looking at our boat? Yep, a little before 11. Took some measurements. Said he's already got a buyer. What? Ben was stunned. He barely managed to say thanks as he turned away. He walked stiffly to where Jill was waiting. What's wrong? He gave her the card. My dad. He's selling the boat. Just like that. Would he do that? Jill asked. What, sell it? Sure, why not? It's his boat. Ben snapped. He can do whatever he wants with the thing. No, said Jill. I mean, would he ever do something this major, just like that, without even mentioning it, without telling you anything? Who knows? And it doesn't matter because he's already got some broker working on... She cut him off. I'll be back in a second. What? Where are you going? Just wait here, okay? Jill trotted back over to the security shed and tapped on the glass. Kevin smiled at her as he slid the window open and then listened while she talked. He nodded a few times, a puzzled look on his face. Jill talked some more and the guard nodded again. Then he smiled and waved so long, and she turned and hurried back over to Ben. What was that all about? He asked. We're gonna have to stop right here. I will pick it up later.